Alright, in this lesson we're going to talk about the process of selecting and deselecting objects inside of Maya. So for this particular lesson we're going to open up a scene file so we can have something to actually demonstrate. So let's go to File, Open Scene, and if you take a look inside your Beginner's Guide to Maya project, which in our previous lesson we learned how we can actually set Maya to use this project, take a look inside your Scenes directory and open up the scene file, which is Lesson 04, Start. Go ahead and press Open. And there we are. So now we have just a quick few objects to be able to work with in here. Now the process of selecting our objects in Maya is relatively simple. All we have to do is just simply left click on an object to select it. Now if we want to select multiple objects, we can do this in a couple of different ways. We can actually use what's called a marquee drag. So we can actually use our mouse, and instead of just simply clicking on an object, we can actually click and drag to actually draw out a marquee and actually select several objects at once. Now, using this marquee select is something that you actually do need to be a little bit careful with, especially if you're just trying to select a single individual object. If you're trying to select maybe just this rock back here, I would avoid using something like a marquee select to just select that one object, because Maya will actually come in and you can see it will go ahead and actually select any objects that may be behind your main object as well. So if you use your marquee select to try and just select an individual object, there actually is a possibility that you may wind up selecting objects that you don't want. So again, I just try to make it a habit to just use a simple left click to select your objects. Now, what if I have an object selected over here and I want to also add maybe just another object over here? Well, we can do that by pressing and holding the Shift key on our keyboard. We can come in here and add objects to our selection. Now, when it comes to shift selecting your objects, the Shift key on your keyboard actually has sort of an interesting function. So you can see I have these two little unselected rocks over here. So what if I wanted to add these two to my existing selection? Well, if I use the Shift key and Shift Marquee Select across these objects, you'll notice that using the Marquee Select while pressing and holding my Shift key is really not adding to my selection. The Shift key is really more of a toggle. So if you shift select any object, it will actually toggle between a deselected or a selected mode. So I can shift select any objects that I want. And then again, just shift to either add or remove selections. Now, if I wanted to come in and explicitly add any objects, I can use Control Shift to add. And now by pressing and holding the Control and Shift keys at the same time, now there's no way of deselecting objects. Now even with a marquee select, anything will be added to my selection. And again, that's Control Shift. Now if I just want to actually remove objects from my selection, just pressing the Control key by itself will now remove any objects from my selection. So you can see Control, click and drag, and that will remove anything. So again, the only three keys that you really need to remember whenever it comes to adding and removing from selections is Control, Shift, and Control Shift together. Now you'll notice that the actual highlight or the wireframe on some of these objects are white and some of them are green. Now the green wireframe really just signifies the last object that I have selected in my entire group of selections here. So you can see as I start to shift click, again, the last object that I add to my selection will always be highlighted green. Now in Maya, your selection order is really, really important. As you start to get a little bit further into Maya and start to begin working with tools and commands, your selection order is actually somewhat important. So you really do want to make it a habit of paying attention to exactly which object was your last selected. Alright, so that's a look at how we can start to select and deselect the various objects in our scenes.